Coming to Canada, the new Prime Minister Mark Carney has directed the Defence Ministry to review a $13.2 billion F-35 fighter jet deal signed with the US.
In a game-changing moment for North American defense relations, Canada is preparing to walk away from a $19 billion F-35 fighter jet deal brokered during the Trump administration. Like a ship changing course in stormy geopolitical seas, this potential abandonment signals Canada's growing assertion of sovereignty in military procurement decisions. With Mark Carney's declaration that Canada will never ever in any way, shape or form be part of the United States, the stage is set for European defense manufacturers to fill the void. Our analysis will examine how Sweden's Saab Gripen and other European alternatives could reshape NATO's internal dynamics and create strategic economic opportunities for Canada's defence sector. Mark Carney's recent ascension to Canada's leadership has immediately ignited a fundamental recalibration of Canadian-American relations. Within days of taking office, Carney made a statement that reverberated through diplomatic channels. "We will never, ever in any way, shape or form be part of the United States." This unequivocal declaration wasn't merely an off-the-cuff remark, but a direct response to US Senator Marco Rubio's provocative suggestion that Canada might become America's 51st state. This sovereignty proclamation marks a strategic redefinition of Canadian national identity amidst heightened international tensions and shifting global alliances. Carney's administration is positioning Canada as an independent power rather than a subordinate partner, reflecting a calculated approach to bilateral relations that transcends routine diplomatic positioning. During a closed-door briefing with provincial leaders, Carney articulated specific concerns about American interests in Canada's abundant water, land and natural resources. Protecting Canadian sovereignty, in his view, requires vigilance across all dimensions of resource management and environmental policy, not just in military affairs. This position resonates with evolving Canadian public sentiment. Recent polling indicates growing resistance among Canadians to perceived American economic and cultural dominance. This shift in public opinion creates a political environment conducive to Carney's sovereignty-focused approach, providing democratic legitimacy to his policies. The reconsideration of Canada's $19 billion F-35 fighter jet procurement represents the first concrete manifestation of this new governance framework. By questioning this arrangement and exploring European alternatives, Carney's administration challenges fundamental assumptions that have guided Canadian defence policy since the Cold War. The F-35's proprietary technology and maintenance requirements would perpetuate Canadian reliance on US systems for decades, creating a particular form of dependence on American infrastructure. Canada has previously demonstrated willingness to assert independence in military matters, but the current reassessment represents a more comprehensive re-evaluation of the bilateral relationship. This approach extends beyond defense to trade relationships, border security, and environmental policy, with each domain now viewed through the lens of enhanced Canadian autonomy. The immediate consequences are already visible in revised negotiating postures. Canadian officials have indicated that upcoming trade discussions will emphasize protections for strategic industries and natural resources. This signals a departure from previous administrations' tendency toward economic integration, establishing sovereignty preservation as the guiding principle for Canada's international engagement under Carney's leadership. This sovereignty-focused recalibration extends directly to Canada's largest military procurement in decades, the F-35 fighter jet contract. What appears on paper as an advanced stealth fighter acquisition conceals a complex web of dependencies that would effectively bind Canadian defense capabilities to American decision-making for the next half-century. The current trajectory of Canada's defense modernization efforts has encountered unexpected turbulence. Despite having already committed substantial funds for the initial batch of 16 jets scheduled for 2025 delivery, Defense Minister Bill Blair recently issued a stunning announcement of reconsideration that has injected significant uncertainty into the procurement process. This abrupt policy reversal has sent shockwaves through defense circles on both sides of the border. A closer examination of the F-35 program reveals persistent global criticism that extends far beyond the initial acquisition costs. While the official price tag stands at $19 billion for 88 aircraft, this figure represents merely the visible portion of a much larger financial commitment. Like an iceberg with its bulk concealed beneath the surface, internal Defense Ministry documents reveal the true lifetime cost could exceed $77 billion when accounting for maintenance, upgrades, parts replacement, and operational expenses over the aircraft's service life. This fourfold increase from the publicly disclosed figure raises profound questions about financial viability and whether such resources could be more effectively allocated elsewhere in Canada's defense portfolio. Beyond these financial concerns, the F-35's technical capabilities present another dimension requiring careful evaluation. Its advanced stealth features and sophisticated avionics systems, while impressive in certain combat scenarios, may not align optimally with Canada's unique operational requirements. The vast Arctic territories that comprise a significant portion of Canadian sovereign airspace demand aircraft capable of long-range patrols in extreme conditions, a mission profile that doesn't necessarily play to the F-35's strengths. Most significantly, the F-35 ecosystem grants the United States unprecedented control over Canadian military assets through proprietary technology, software, and maintenance requirements. This arrangement creates what defense analysts have termed sovereignty in name only, as deployment decisions during potential conflicts could effectively require American approval through technical mechanisms. The software that controls critical F-35 functions remains under strict U.S. control, creating a perpetual dependence relationship that extends decades beyond the initial purchase. This sovereignty question has already prompted other nations to reconsider their F-35 commitments. Portugal's recent withdrawal from its F-35 acquisition plans, citing specific concerns about American operational restrictions, provides a compelling precedent for Canada's reconsideration. The Portuguese Defense Ministry concluded that the operational constraints would unacceptably compromise their strategic autonomy, a conclusion that resonates with Canada's current sovereignty-centered approach to defense policy. While Portugal's decision signals a growing trend among nations prioritizing sovereignty in defense procurement, Sweden has positioned itself as the ideal alternative to meet Canada's unique strategic needs. The Saab Gripen offers capabilities that fundamentally challenge the assumption that the most expensive fighter is necessarily the most effective solution for Canada's defense requirements. The Saab J-39E Gripen represents a radically different philosophy in fighter jet design compared to the F-35. Swedish engineers prioritized practicality, adaptability, and operational independence, precisely the qualities that align with Canada's strategic imperatives. The Gripen delivers exceptional performance characteristics, Mach 2 speed capability, and superior maneuverability in diverse combat scenarios. Operation from dispersed, minimally prepared airstrips as short as 800 meters. Ability to utilize highways and forest roads across Canada's vast Arctic territory. This dispersed operations capability functions as a strategic multiplier effect. The Gripen enables the Canadian Air Force to maintain operational flexibility across thousands of kilometers of remote territory, significantly enhancing deterrence capabilities in the resource-rich Arctic region while preserving complete operational autonomy. The economic dimensions of the Swedish proposal strengthen Canada's industrial sovereignty. Saab's comprehensive industrial participation package includes establishing production facilities directly on Canadian soil, generating an estimated 4,500 high-skilled aerospace jobs. These facilities would revitalize local communities across multiple provinces while facilitating substantial technology transfer agreements benefiting Canada's broader industrial base. Unlike the F-35 program's restrictive intellectual property framework, Saab's proposal includes genuine technology sharing that would boost Canadian aerospace innovation capacity for decades. Operational economics reveal equally compelling advantages. The Gripen's per-flight hour cost is approximately $8,000, compared to the F-35's estimated $35,000 per hour, a 77% reduction that could save Canadian taxpayers billions over the aircraft's 30-year life cycle. Maintenance requirements follow a similar pattern, with the Gripen requiring just 10 maintenance hours per flight hour versus the F-35's 50 hours. In international military exercises, the Gripen has consistently demonstrated remarkable effectiveness against more expensive platforms. During NATO's Arctic Challenge exercises, Gripen pilots achieved impressive kill ratios against F-35 variants. Like a sprinter outmaneuvering a heavily armored opponent, the Gripen leverages agility and electronic warfare capabilities rather than relying on costly stealth characteristics. A critical sovereignty advantage stems from the Gripen's open architecture software design. Unlike the F-35's proprietary systems requiring US approval for modifications, the Gripen's modular approach allows Canada complete control over future upgrades and adaptations without seeking permission from foreign entities. Other European alternatives merit consideration as well. France's Dassault Rafale offers proven combat performance with exceptional range capabilities, while the Eurofighter Typhoon provides a multinational production model with established NATO interoperability. When France withdrew from NATO's Integrated Military Command in 1966 after developing its independent nuclear deterrent, it signaled a profound shift in alliance dynamics. Today, similar tectonic movements are reshaping NATO's foundation. The European alternatives to American fighter jets represent a fundamental realignment within NATO's power dynamics. While Canada contemplates its defense procurement options, a much larger transformation is unfolding across the Atlantic. The traditional security relationship that has defined Western defense for over 7 decades is experiencing unprecedented strain as European nations assert greater strategic autonomy. This shift manifests most visibly in European defense spending, which has increased by more than 30% between 2021 and 2024. With expenditures now approaching €326 billion, approximately 1.9% of the EU's GDP. This trajectory indicates most NATO members will soon reach or exceed the alliance's long-standing 2% GDP target, a benchmark that previously generated significant tension. The European Commission's ambitious Rearm Europe initiative allocates up to €800 billion for joint defense projects, representing a strategic pivot of historic proportions aimed at rebuilding European military manufacturing capacity that has atrophied since the Cold War. Evidence of this defense industrial renaissance is already apparent across the continent. Rheinmetall, Europe's largest ammunition manufacturer, reported record profits last year and projects growth of up to 30% in the coming year. Similar performance across the European defense sector indicates the continent is rapidly rebuilding industrial capacity to provide NATO members with viable alternatives to American platforms. Portugal's rejection of the F-35 program illustrates this broader realignment. Unlike previous procurement decisions driven primarily by technical specifications or budgetary constraints, Portuguese officials explicitly cited concerns about unpredictable American foreign policy as a motivating factor. Like France's 1966 decision, this unprecedented justification reflects growing anxiety about defense dependencies that could leave European nations vulnerable to political pressure from Washington. The diversification of NATO members' military equipment creates both challenges and opportunities. Integrating diverse weapons systems presents significant interoperability hurdles that could complicate joint operations. Military exercises may require more complex coordination protocols, and logistics pipelines must accommodate a wider variety of munitions and spare parts. Yet this diversification also creates a more resilient alliance structure. Multiple supply chains mean individual bottlenecks or political disputes have less potential to disrupt operational readiness. The European Defense Industrial Base provides insurance against potential disruptions in American supply chains. This distributed approach ultimately strengthens NATO by reducing vulnerability to single points of failure. Canada's reconsideration of the F-35 deal potentially represents another such inflection point, reflecting broader anxieties about preserving strategic flexibility in an era of heightened uncertainty. Beyond the geopolitical dimensions of Canada's fighter jet decision lies a transformative opportunity for the nation's defense industrial base. While the $9.6 billion in annual economic activity and 81,200 jobs demonstrate the sector's current significance, these figures could substantially increase under European procurement models that emphasize domestic production. Unlike the F-35 program's limited industrial benefits, European alternatives propose establishing manufacturing facilities within Canadian borders, effectively creating an aerospace ecosystem where one previously didn't exist. Consider the case of Winnipeg machinist Sarah Chen, who currently manufactures simple components for American aerospace firms. Under a European fighter procurement model, she could transition to producing critical flight control systems, increasing her technical expertise and income while contributing to national defense sovereignty. Canada's defense procurement strategy has evolved significantly in recent years, moving beyond equipping the armed forces to actively developing domestic industrial capacity. The government's Our North Strong and Free initiative allocates $10.2 billion over 2 decades for defense infrastructure modernization, while simultaneously committing $9.5 billion towards strategic ammunition reserves and artillery production facilities. This comprehensive investment approach addresses immediate security concerns while building manufacturing capacity that reduces foreign dependence. Like an industrial engine being retooled for higher performance, Canada's defense sector stands poised for transformation through strategic procurement decisions that prioritize knowledge transfer and domestic production. The industrial benefits associated with European fighter jet proposals distinguish them sharply from the American F-35 program. Under European procurement models, particularly Saab's Gripen proposal, Canada would gain access to complete technical documentation, manufacturing processes, and intellectual property. This technology transfer enables Canadian companies to develop indigenous capabilities, extending far beyond the immediate fighter jet program. Canadian aerospace manufacturers like Bombardier, CAE, and Magellan Aerospace could leverage newly acquired expertise in advanced materials, propulsion systems, and avionics to compete more effectively in global markets. The multiplier effect would extend throughout the industrial supply chain, creating opportunities for innovation and export growth. The establishment of fighter jet production facilities would necessitate significant workforce development initiatives. European manufacturers propose comprehensive training programs to upskill thousands of Canadian workers in advanced manufacturing techniques, contributing to broader industrial competitiveness across high-technology sectors. Regional economic development represents another advantage of European procurement models, with manufacturing facilities distributed across multiple provinces, ensuring benefits extend beyond traditional aerospace clusters in Quebec and Ontario. This regional approach strengthens industrial capacity nationwide while addressing persistent economic disparities. The contrasting approaches between American and European manufacturers regarding technology transfer reflect fundamentally different philosophies about international defense partnerships, with profound implications for Canada's long-term technological sovereignty and industrial autonomy. Mark Carney's unequivocal declaration, "Canada will not surrender its sovereignty," represents the culmination of a strategic reorientation towards European defense partnerships. This pivotal moment redefines Canada's position within the North Atlantic security framework. By prioritizing sovereignty through European defense collaborations, Canada positions itself at the forefront of NATO transformation. Defense Minister Blair's emphasis on national sovereignty illustrates how military procurement intertwines with questions of national identity. The potential shift towards European manufacturers like Saab offers not merely alternative aircraft, but a reassessment of Canada's geopolitical alignment. This decision marks a critical inflection point in transatlantic relations. As Canada steps back from American defense dependence, it demonstrates that even America's closest allies seek greater strategic autonomy, a bold leap towards self-determination that could reshape the future balance of global power.